Every year, the Spiel des Jahres jury selects 3 nominees for Kennerspiel des Jahres. And for 2024, they have nominated 3 interesting games, and that's what I'm going to talk about here. This is the Kennerspiel, not the Spiel, which is just the game of the year. So if you want to check out who I think is going to win that category for just Spiel des Jahres, go check out that video. I'll put the link in the description below. But this one is going to be for the more advanced play. And it's not necessarily the gamer's game, which in the past has been a little bit more complex. The Kennerspiel is for the kind of hobby gamer, not for the family game or for the entry gateway game. This one's a little bit more complex. Now, in more recent years, it's been trending super light. So the last couple years, you've got Challengers as the winner, Living Forest in 2022, Paleo 21, and then the Crew Quest for Planet 9 in the previous year. Then you go back and check out some of the other winners are Wingspan, Quacks of Quedlinburg, Istanbul, Village, and Seven Wonders. And those are more complex games. Those are longer games. The weight on BGG for those are a lot harder than, let's say, the card game, the trick-taking game, The Crew. So I think that what I want to talk about here with the Kennerspiel is what do I think is going to fit thematically with some of the popular themes or topics that games are coming out with and that people are really into, but also the complexity and the weight, and then the gamer, like the gamer size, which I think played a factor in my Spiel des Jahres selection. So let's talk about those nominees. The first nominee is Daybreak. The second is the Guild of Merchant Explorers, and the third nominee is the Ticket to Ride Legacy game, Ticket to Ride Legacy Legends of the West. So those are the 3 games, and I'm just going to start back up at the top. Daybreak is co-designed by Matt Leacock, and you will notice that name or recognize it from Pandemic fame. And so we have here a designer that has a real feel for cooperative games, and not just that, for innovating systems that really work with theme and with mechanics. So in Daybreak, players are acting as a faction, a world power, and every world power in the game has a totally different start and kind of like functioning system. And they are coming from a different place, meaning they have different starting resources because that's representative of where you are in the world starting out now. There's kind of like this reflection of what's going on in real life and society. And as that governing faction, you are going to be allocating out resources and trying to cut your carbon emissions because that's the goal of everybody at the table. Then you win together. And so the goal here is to work together, much like all cooperative games. But the interesting thing is that you are playing out cards into your own player area or possibly giving them to other players or contributing to these common goals. And so if you can contribute to common goals or projects, then you start having group opportunities or benefits. And the game is really tough. It's hard. It's really built to make you feel like you're losing, which is, the kind of Pandemic feel. It's a really interesting game. I think it scales well for fewer players or more players. And I think that the components and the game theme itself of limiting carbon emissions and building trees and saving our oceans is really popular right now and absolutely speaks to current conditions and crises in a way that is thoughtful and is nuanced, because the game itself doesn't come with any kind of processed materials like plastics and things that are going to be damaging to the planet. And they also have these fantastic codes on all the cards that take you to real life information and research about all of the stuff that's related to climate change. So that's Daybreak. The next game is the Guild of Merchant Explorers, and players are essentially building out these networks of little structures across all these different places. And there are a variety of maps here, so you can play on one map and then you can just explore and start playing on other maps at the same time with other players. Of course, you want to pick the same map that you're playing on, but it's got this flippin' build system. Kind of like any roll and write, but instead of rolling and writing, you're flipping cards and then building these little structures in the locations that it says to. So there are a variety of different like categories of locations, and then there will be a certain number that you can build, and you are trying to get to landmarks, you're trying to get to sunken treasure, you're trying to get to a variety of scoring mechanisms. It's nice, it's straightforward, it's light, it's clean, it's pretty, it feels good when you play it. It has that kind of frustrating nature that makes you want to play again, because you have goals and you really think, well, if I can do this and I could do that, then this will happen. And so it's got this nice kind of like tension with yourself, not necessarily with other people at the table. So I find that to be a real delight. And you've got your, 45 to 60 minute game there. This game is definitely the lightest of the three. And so I think that because it is so light, it makes me feel like it's almost like Spiel des Jahres adjacent. It could have maybe gotten into the other category because it is lighter than the other two, or maybe because all the Kennerspiel nominees have been trending lighter, it kind of indicates that maybe Guild of Merchant Explorers might actually be the obvious pick. But I'll get there when I finish talking about Ticket to Ride Legacy Legends of the West. So this is the third nominee. And as you can guess, this is Ticket to Ride, but it is the legacy version of it. Much like you had Pandemic and you had Legacy, Season 1, 2, and then Season 0. We also have Clank Acquisitions Incorporated, which is the Season 1. The Season 2 is coming out. So it's taking this core game that players are pretty familiar with, these kind of lovely gateway or entry games that are just fun to share. I mean, Ticket to Ride is kind of one of the kind of the core three that people recognize. So it takes this Ticket to Ride game and it starts you off with almost everything that you're familiar with, but there's also some changes even in the first game. But the first game is relatively easy to get into, much like so many legacy games. It's like the Sagrada that I talked about, Sagrada Artisans, where it's like you start here, but then by the time you get to the end, you got, all these layers of complexity and this shifting and this changing. That's what this is going to offer players, is this legacy experience that really just is for Ticket to Ride players. So I love Clank, I'm playing Clank Acquisitions. I love Pandemic, I'm playing Pandemic Legacy. I love Sagrada, I'm playing Sagrada Artisans. So guess what? I'm going to say the same thing. This is not going to disappoint. It will absolutely be that game for you. And again, if you don't know, Ticket to Ride is simply this system of getting cards or playing down tracks and then connecting routes on a map. And in this, you've got Legends to the West. You're focusing on the West, and you are, again, building, but it's also going to slowly start changing and adjusting and giving you things and developing the game. So the legacy experience means you're going through the whole thing and you're playing it again and again and again. Now, I don't know if you're going to be able to play it again after that. Every time I've done a legacy game, I've played it and then I kind of stopped because we just played a whole ton of it. And I don't necessarily feel like playing even more of it. But while you're playing it, very delightful. So that's going to be your Ticket to Ride. It's kind of right in the middle. The legacy is in the middle of the complexity. Daybreak is the most complex. Then I would say Ticket to Ride, and then I would say at the bottom, the lightness is the Guild of Merchant Explorers. So now let's talk about theme. Ticket to Ride has this existing, intellectual property. It has this existing world. Train games, yay, toot toot. I mean, it's nice. And if you know it, it sounds familiar and it sounds lovely and it sounds comfortable. I would say the Guild of Merchant Explorers has kind of more of an abstract theme because it's super abstract. You're just placing down, like these little structures out on little, spaces on your board. There's a lot of symbols and different terrain and stuff, but it's not necessarily more than that. So the theme doesn't really rise off of that with you're exploring. Okay, great, but it's very abstract. And I say Daybreak is the most thematic because it absolutely connects what it's doing, like what your goals are in the game, with like the components and with the actual mechanics. Is work together, but you have to essentially just choose the direction you want to go as a group and as an individual, because the game encourages simultaneous play. So when it's your turn, it's everyone's turn. During the player's turn, you just play your cards where you want to. So you have to really communicate with each other to get your cards down and to save the world. So I like the cooperative nature of it. The other two are competitive. I also think that the system is really smart. I think the theme is there. So the theme kind of rises above, the mechanics kind of rise above, and it is more complex than the other two, but my favorite is Daybreak. I think this is where I diverge. With my spiel, I kind of had a similar lineup of what I think they're going to pick and what I liked. I really did. It was interesting. But I think here I'm going to say I think Daybreak is a very, very good game. I've played the most of that of all the games, and I think that every time I play, it is good. I have such a good time with it. It is a nail biter. It's a really, really interesting system that still feels a lot like the, Matt Leacock cooperative game. But I think that the jury, trending lighter and trending just easier for the one step above family games, I think they're going to pick the Guild of Merchant Explorers. It's a good game. It deserves to win something. I mean, it's fine. It's good. It's really good. But for me, I was really taken by Daybreak. And I think it is a little bit more complex, but I really like what's going on there. And if you want to see my video about either of those two games, I've got videos. I'll put that in the description below too. You can check out the standalone explanation, overview, and review of both the Guild of Merchant Explorers and of Daybreak. So that's going to be it for me this time. What do you think? Have you played these? Who is going to win? And what's going on? What's going to happen? I'm excited. I'm excited to see who is going to win and to see if my predictions are going to pan out. All right, everybody, that's going to be it for me this time. I will see you later. Bye.